Do not blink is not a warning here. It is an invitation. Not because something big is about to happen, but because something small can be noticed if you remain present. The angels say real shifts rarely announce themselves with force. They arrive quietly, and they are only perceptible when you are not rushing past yourself. Nothing dramatic is required from you right now. You do not need to adjust your breathing. You do not need to change your posture or prepare your focus. You do not need to do anything correctly. Presence is not a technique. It is simply allowing yourself to be where you already are. This message is not saying that something will happen to you. It is saying that something can be felt. That distinction matters. Expectation pulls attention forward. Awareness brings attention back to now. And subtle shifts only register in the present moment. Your mind may immediately start asking questions. What will change? How will it feel? When will I know? The angels say this questioning is natural and does not need to be stopped. It also does not need to be answered. This experience does not move through explanation. It moves through sensation. In the first moments, you may notice nothing at all. That is not a failure. It is often the first sign that the nervous system is listening rather than reacting. When the system listens, it pauses. And pauses can look like nothing happening from the outside. Inside, however, speed begins to soften. Thoughts create slightly more space between them. Muscles may release tension without your awareness. Breathing may settle without instruction. These are not signals you must detect. They occur whether you notice them or not. The angels emphasize that this moment is safe. There is no test here. No opportunity that can be missed. No timer you must obey. 9 minutes is not a countdown. It is a window. A short span where effort naturally drops and awareness can widen without strain. This window is not created by discipline. It is created by permission. Permission to stop trying to understand what is coming next. Permission to stop scanning for results. Permission to let the body lead for a few minutes instead of the mind. Normally, these windows appear briefly throughout the day and disappear unnoticed. A pause between tasks. A moment of stillness before responding. They are often overridden by urgency. Here, you are allowing that window to remain open a little longer. That does not require full attention. Half attention is enough. You can be reading, listening, or simply existing. Micro shifts do not require intensity. They do not require focus. They require openness. The pace of these words is intentional. It is not trying to move you forward. It is inviting you to settle where you are. Change becomes noticeable only after settling. Movement without settling is just motion. You may feel an internal pressure that says something should be happening. The angels want to soften that pressure. Nothing needs to happen. The absence of forcing is itself a condition for change. This moment is not asking you to become aware of everything. It is asking you to stop narrowing awareness around expectation. When expectation relaxes, the body begins to communicate more clearly. You may simply be looking at a screen. You may be doing something else at the same time. That is fine. This process does not demand exclusivity. Subtle changes do not shout. They whisper. And whispers do not require silence to be heard. The angels say that 9 minutes has a rhythm. It begins gently. It deepens quietly. It ends without a marker. Like a breath. You know when it starts, but you do not need to signal when it finishes. Do not blink does not mean keep your eyes open. It means do not close inwardly. Do not rush to label or interpret. Do not jump ahead to meaning. Stay with what is already here. You are not being prepared for something that comes later. There is nothing you need to be ready for. This is about noticing what is already shifting beneath the surface. If the only thing you notice is that you are reading more slowly, that is already a change. Hurry blocks perception. When hurry fades, the body begins to speak. The angels say comfort is the most reliable indicator here, not intense comfort. Just slightly less tightness, slightly less internal pressure, slightly less urgency. These small reductions matter more than traumatic sensations. This first phase exists to anchor you in what is already happening, not to point toward what might happen. Energy shifts do not live in the future. They occur now when resistance drops. You do not need to hold this moment. There is nothing to hold. Simply remain available to it. Availability is enough. The rest will move in its own time. You are here, and that is sufficient. 9 minutes may sound arbitrary, but the angels say it aligns with how the nervous system naturally settles when it no longer feels observed, tested, or rushed. It is long enough for vigilance to soften, and short enough that the mind stops demanding a payoff. In that window, awareness changes its quality. In the first few minutes, the mind often stays active. It scans for results. It wonders if it is doing this correctly. That activity is not a problem. The angels say it is simply momentum. When nothing demands a response, that momentum slowly loses force. Around this span of time, the body begins to register safety more clearly. Heart rhythm becomes steadier. Muscle tone eases without instruction. Breathing organizes itself. These are not techniques. They are automatic responses to reduced pressure. 9 minutes matters because it gives the system time to move out of reaction and into regulation. Shorter than that, and alertness stays dominant. Much longer, and the mind often reasserts control, looking for meaning or evaluation. This duration creates a balance point. The angels emphasize that nothing needs to be monitored during this period. Watching for change keeps the nervous system engaged. Allowing time to pass without supervision lets it recalibrate on its own. This is why 9 minutes is not a countdown. It is not something to complete. It is an interval where effort naturally decreases if you do not interfere. Time becomes an environment rather than a goal. During this window, you might feel bored. You might feel neutral. You might feel distracted. All of these states are acceptable. Regulation does not require interest. It requires absence of threat. Many people miss subtle shifts because they expect movement to feel active. But the nervous system registers change as reduced strain. Less tension feels like nothing happening to a mind trained to look for stimulation. The angels say that when people report nothing happened, they are often describing the exact moment the system stopped bracing. Bracing feels familiar. Its absence can feel empty at first. This 9-minute span allows that unfamiliar absence to become tolerable. The body learns that nothing bad follows when it does not stay on guard. That learning is the shift. You are not required to sit still. You are not required to focus inward. This window works even if attention drifts. Regulation does not depend on concentration. It depends on permission. If you notice the urge to check whether something has changed, that urge itself will pass if you do not act on it. When it passes, space opens. That space is what allows energy to redistribute. The angels describe energy here in very practical terms. It is the effort spent maintaining tension. When tension releases slightly, that effort becomes available again. Available energy feels like calm, not excitement. This is why 9 minutes is enough. It is enough time for effort to soften without the mind demanding a story about it. You may not remember when this window ends. That is intentional. Marking the end would pull attention back into control. Letting it blur keeps the system open. This part of the message exists to explain why you do not need to do anything. The duration itself does the work when you let it. Nothing needs to be achieved in these minutes. They are not productive. They are permissive. And that permission is what allows the shift to occur quietly. What matters most in this phase is understanding how the shift is felt, because most people look for it in the wrong place. The angels say subtle change does not arrive as excitement or intensity. It arrives as reduction. Something that was there before is no longer pressing as hard. Around this point, what you notice first is often an absence. A thought that would normally repeat does not grip as tightly. A sense of urgency loosens. A background tension that felt constant becomes quieter. The mind often mislabels this as nothing happening because it is trained to recognize presence, not release. This is why many people overlook real change. They expect an added sensation when the nervous system signals progress through subtraction. Less strain, less internal noise, less pressure to act immediately. The angels explain that this shift is most often felt through the body rather than through emotion. Shoulders may rest lower, the jaw may unclench, breathing may become smoother without conscious control. These are not traumatic sensations, but they are meaningful. Energy recalibration does not bring a rush. It brings neutrality. Neutrality is often misunderstood as emptiness, but it is actually balance. When the system is not pulled in opposing directions, it settles in the middle. At this stage, many people begin checking themselves, asking whether they feel different, wondering if they are missing something. The angels say this checking is normal, but unnecessary. Monitoring pulls attention back into control mode, which is not required here. If you feel nothing distinct, that does not mean nothing changed. It may mean the system no longer needs to signal distress. Calm rarely announces itself. It simply becomes the background. This shift also does not create motivation. It creates space. And space allows clearer choice later, without forcing action now. The angels emphasize that slowing down here is not stagnation. It is recalibration. You may notice a moment where you think, I do not need to fix anything right now. That thought is significant. It signals that pressure has eased. Pressure reduction is one of the clearest indicators that energy has shifted. This change does not make you passive. It makes you less reactive. When reaction softens, discernment improves. You become more selective about what deserves your attention. Many people expect change to feel inspiring. The angels say inspiration often follows alignment, not the other way around. First comes steadiness, then clarity, then movement. This is why the shift may feel almost boring. Boredom here is not lack. It is the absence of overstimulation. A system that is no longer on alert does not produce strong signals. You do not need to hold on to this feeling. Trying to preserve it would reintroduce effort. This change stabilizes itself because it is not maintained by thought. If you find yourself less compelled to engage with certain worries, that is part of the recalibration. Concerns may still arise, but they do not hook as deeply. They pass more easily. The angels say this is how lasting change works. It does not overwrite your experience. It changes how strongly you are pulled by it. This phase is not about understanding what happened. It is about recognizing that something softened. That recognition may come later, when you notice how you respond differently without trying. For now, it is enough to allow this neutrality to exist without naming it. Naming is optional. Presence is sufficient. The shift does not need acknowledgement to continue. It is already integrated, and that quiet integration is the point. After the 9 minutes pass, the most common realization is that nothing obvious happened. The angels say this realization is accurate, and that accuracy matters. What shifted was not an event. It was a release. Release does not announce itself with sensation. It expresses itself through ease. At this point, there is nothing you need to do. No action to take. No insight to apply. Trying to capture the shift would only recreate tension. This change does not want to be managed. It wants to be carried naturally into what comes next. Think of it as a room where the air has quietly refreshed. The furniture did not move. The structure stayed the same. But breathing feels slightly easier. You do not need to keep checking the air to benefit from it. You simply continue being in the room. You are free to continue your day exactly as it was planned. The same conversations, the same tasks, the same responsibilities. What changes is not what you do, but how much resistance accompanies it. Slightly less pressure, slightly less internal urgency. The angels emphasize that this calm does not need protection. It is not fragile. It does not disappear if you forget about it. In fact, it integrates best when you stop paying attention to it. If later you notice yourself pausing before reacting, that is the shift at work. If you disengage sooner from something that feels draining, that is the shift expressing itself. These effects often appear after the moment has passed, not during it. You do not need to mark the end of the 9 minutes. You do not need to know exactly when it finished. This was never about timing precisely. It was about allowing a brief interval where control softened. Some tension may return later. That is normal. The angels are clear that this shift does not erase stress permanently. What it does is establish a reference point. Your system now remembers what less strain feels like. Once that reference exists, the same level of tension becomes harder to tolerate. You begin adjusting earlier, stopping sooner, choosing differently without needing to justify it. That is how real change sustains itself. Not through constant awareness, but through altered thresholds. What once felt acceptable now feels unnecessary. This message does not ask you to believe anything. It does not ask you to commit to a practice. It simply offered a moment where the system could recalibrate without pressure. You are not meant to hold on to this state. You are meant to move from it. And you can do that now, without ceremony, without confirmation, without waiting for proof. The shift does not need recognition to remain real. You can simply continue. That is how it lasts.